Ever feel like the modern world is just a whirlwind of stress, confusion, and an endless chase for, well, what exactly? You're not alone. We're constantly bombarded with advice on how to be richer, more productive, more something. But what about how to be happier, wiser, more resilient? What if I told you that some of the most powerful tools for navigating the chaos of 21st century life were forged thousands of years ago by minds that grappled with the very same human struggles we face today? That's the incredible promise explored in Jules Evans' book, Philosophy for Life and Other Dangerous Situations, which I'll be diving deep into today. We're going to strip away the academic dust and discover how ancient wisdom isn't just for lecture halls, but a practical, life-altering guide for everyday people like you and me. Get ready to unlock the secrets to a more examined, meaningful, and ultimately a better life. Many of us hear the word philosophy and our eyes glaze over. We picture dusty tomes, incomprehensible arguments, or maybe even flash back to that one confusing college course we barely scraped through. It seems so abstract, so disconnected from the urgent realities of paying bills, dealing with difficult bosses, or navigating complicated relationships. We think, I've got enough on my plate. Who has time for ancient Greek dudes and their ponderings? I confess, I used to feel that way too. My early encounters with philosophy felt like a chore, a set of intellectual hoops to jump through for a grade, rather than something with any real-world value. But what if I told you that philosophy, at its core, is one of the most practical subjects you could ever explore? What if it's not about abstract theories, but about actionable strategies for living well, for finding inner peace, and for building unshakable resilience? The truth is, philosophy is already woven into the fabric of our lives, whether we realize it or not. Every time you make a tough decision, question your purpose, or strive to be a better person, you're engaging in a philosophical act. The difference is that the great philosophers of the past dedicated their entire lives to systematically thinking through these big questions, and they left us a treasure trove of insights. Jules Evans, the author of Philosophy for Life, came to this realization through a very personal and challenging journey. He wasn't some ivory tower academic detached from reality. In fact, Evans battled severe depression, social anxiety, and PTSD. He was in a place of profound suffering, a dark pit from which escape seemed impossible. It was in this crucible of pain that he encountered the work of Albert Ellis and Aaron Beck, the pioneers of cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. And here's the fascinating link. CBT, one of the most effective modern psychotherapies, has its roots deeply embedded in ancient Stoic philosophy. Specifically, Evans found solace and strength in the teachings of Epictetus, a Stoic philosopher who lived nearly 2,000 years ago. Epictetus famously said, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them." Think about that for a moment. It's not the events themselves that cause us suffering, but our interpretations, our judgments, our beliefs about those events. This insight, articulated in 55 AD, became a cornerstone of CBT and a lifeline for Evans. The ABC model in CBT, for instance, directly reflects this. A is the activating event, something happens. B is your belief or interpretation about that event. C is the consequence, your emotional and behavioral response. If you want to change C, your suffering, you can't always change A, the external event, but you can change B, your beliefs and interpretations. This was a revelation for Evans, and it can be for us too. It showed him a path out of his emotional turmoil by learning to manage his thoughts and beliefs, a skill honed by the ancient Stoics. His journey from debilitating mental illness to becoming an advocate for practical philosophy is a testament to its power. He realized that these ancient thinkers weren't just spinning theories, they were offering tools for emotional self-regulation and resilience. Socrates, another giant of philosophy, believed that philosophy is intimately linked to our mental and physical well-being. Yet, so many of us go through life unaware of the cultural scripts, parental teachings, and societal pressures that shape our beliefs and emotional responses. We're often like puppets, dancing to strings we don't even see. We don't realize that our emotions, which can feel so overwhelming and uncontrollable, can actually be guided and transformed through learning, through the wisdom that philosophy offers. The intellectual power derived from these ancient teachings is truly remarkable. It can fortify our inner citadel, making us less vulnerable to the storms of life. In our modern age, we might seem outwardly strong. We have technological marvels, access to information, and material comforts beyond the wildest dreams of our ancestors. But inwardly, many of us are fragile. No matter how much money we accumulate or how physically fit we are, if our minds are brittle, a single unexpected blow can shatter us. It's precisely this inner vulnerability that Evans seeks to address in his book by reintroducing us to the wisdom of ancient sages. He wants to bring the light of their insights to a wider audience, to help us reconnect with these timeless ideas and find practical methods to strengthen our inner selves for the challenges of contemporary life. So, let's embark on this journey together. Let's explore some of these classical schools of thought, light a few candles of ancient wisdom, and see how their illumination can help us navigate our own unique difficulties and find our own paths to a more flourishing existence. First up, let's delve into Stoicism, a philosophy that teaches us to be as strong and unshakable as a rock, to steer our own lives with unwavering resolve. Before we unpack the principles, let me share a story that powerfully illustrates Stoic resilience in action. It's the account of Rhonda Cornum, a U.S. Army flight surgeon during the 1991 Gulf War. In February of that year, the helicopter she was on was shot down. The crash was horrific. Cornum suffered 2 broken arms, a shattered kneecap, a torn ligament, and a gunshot wound in her shoulder, among other severe injuries. As if that weren't enough, while dazed and critically injured, she was captured by Iraqi soldiers. Thrown onto a truck, in excruciating pain with every jolt, she was then sexually assaulted by one of her captors. Her male colleague, tied up beside her, could only watch in helpless horror. Later, when reflecting on this unimaginable ordeal, particularly the rape, she said something astounding. "It just wasn't the biggest thing that happened to me that day." When a fellow prisoner, seeing her condition, remarked on her strength and asked how she was coping, she replied, "What do you think I should do? Cry?" For her, crying felt utterly useless in that moment. Subsequently, Cornum endured days of brutal captivity as a prisoner of war, stripped of all freedom, her life hanging by a thread, constantly facing the threat of death. Yet, she survived. She was eventually rescued. And what's truly remarkable is that she didn't let this horrific experience define her or condemn her to a life overshadowed by trauma. Instead, she went on to become a powerful advocate for comprehensive soldier fitness, teaching resilience to others in the military. When asked how she managed to endure such horrors without breaking, she often cited a core principle: "I will only change what I can change, and I will not complain about what I cannot complain." This, in essence, is the heart of Stoicism. It's very similar to the concept of the circle of influence and circle of concern popularized by Stephen Covey. Focus your energy on what's within your power to change: your thoughts, your judgments, your actions, your responses. Don't waste precious energy and emotional resources on things outside your control. This Stoic mindset was Rhonda Cornum's armor, protecting her from the external assaults, allowing her to conquer unimaginable pain and adversity through her own formidable inner strength. One of the most influential Stoic philosophers was Epictetus. His life story is itself a lesson in Stoic principles. Born a slave in the Roman Empire around 55 AD, his early life was one of utter powerlessness. Slaves were considered property, with no personal freedom, no control over their own lives, not even their own bodies. Epictetus was lamed as a youth, possibly by a cruel master who broke his leg. Yet, fortune took a turn when he was sold to Epicurus, a wealthy and educated freedman who worked for Emperor Nero. Recognizing Epictetus's keen intellect, Epicurus allowed him to study Stoic philosophy. Eventually, Epictetus gained his freedom, became a renowned philosopher himself, and even established his own school, attracting students from all walks of life, including future Roman emperors like Marcus Aurelius, whose Meditations is a cornerstone of Stoic literature. You might think, wow, from slave to celebrated philosopher and teacher of emperors, Epictetus must have become incredibly wealthy and lived a life of luxury, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Despite his fame and influence, Epictetus lived a life of extreme simplicity, even poverty. He reportedly owned little more than a simple hut, a bed, a mat, and a lamp, and his door was never locked. Later in life, when Emperor Domitian grew wary of philosophers and expelled them from Rome, Epictetus was forced into exile. Yet, even in a foreign land, he continued his teaching, his spirit undimmed. His life embodied the Stoic ideal of resilience, of maintaining inner equanimity regardless of external circumstances, whether poverty, physical disability, or political persecution. These were not mere misfortunes to him, they were part of the fabric of life, opportunities to practice virtue. How did he achieve such remarkable fortitude? It stemmed from a central Stoic tenet, the clear distinction between what we can control and what we cannot. Epictetus taught that so much in life lies outside our direct control. We don't choose when or where we're born, we can't fully control our health or wealth, the external environment, the government, our neighbors, how our children turn out, or our relationships with our boss, friends, family, or even our spouse. Death itself is an ever-present reality, and as the Tibetans say, we never know which will come first, tomorrow or the next life. So, what can we control? Epictetus's answer is simple yet profound: our own thoughts, our judgments, our desires, our aversions, and our actions. In essence, our inner world, our responses to external events. He argued that most of our suffering arises from two fundamental errors. The first error is trying to exert absolute control over things that are, by their very nature, uncontrollable. When we do this, and inevitably fail, we experience frustration, anger, anxiety, guilt, and even depression. The second error is failing to take full responsibility for what is within our control, our thoughts, beliefs, and actions. Instead, we blame external factors, our parents, our partners, our bosses, the economy, society, our circumstances. This also leads to feelings of helplessness and resentment, a sense that life is unfair. All emotional turmoil, all suffering, Epictetus would argue, stems from these two critical mistakes, these irrational ways of engaging with the world. So, what's the Stoic prescription? Epictetus offers two key pieces of advice. First, do not blame yourself or waste energy feeling guilty or regretful for things that are outside your control. Rhonda Cornum being shot down and assaulted, that was not her fault. It was outside her control. There was no point in her saying, "If only I hadn't been on that flight." Second, do not use external circumstances or other people as an excuse for your own reactions or lack of virtue. The Stoics believed that every moment, every challenge is an opportunity to practice virtue, to strengthen our character. Epictetus being born a slave, having his leg broken, being exiled, Rhonda Cornum facing unimaginable trauma. These were all, in a Stoic sense, opportunities for them to exercise their inner power, their capacity for rational response and resilience. Therefore, constantly remind yourself, no matter what happens, you always have the power to choose your response. Even when very little is within your external control, there is always a space between an external stimulus and your reaction. That space, as Viktor Frankl would later echo, is where your freedom and power lie. It's the space where you choose your beliefs, your judgments, and ultimately your actions. This is the empowering core of Stoicism. Now let's shift gears and explore a philosophy that is often misunderstood: Epicureanism. When we hear Epicurean, many of us picture decadent feasts, unrestrained indulgence, and a pursuit of sensual pleasures. But this is a caricature, a far cry from what Epicurus, the founder of this school, actually taught around 300 BC, during the same Hellenistic period when Stoicism was flourishing. Epicurus and his followers established a community called the Garden on the outskirts of Athens. It was a place of retreat, a sanctuary, where they lived a simple, communal life, largely secluded from the hustle and bustle of the city. For Epicurus, true pleasure, the ultimate aim of life, was not about fleeting, intense highs, but about achieving a state of ataraxia, tranquility, serenity, freedom from mental disturbance, and aponia, the absence of physical pain. His philosophy was about attaining a stable, peaceful kind of happiness. On the entrance to the garden, a sign read, "Stranger, here you will do well to tarry. Here our highest good is pleasure." But the pleasure Epicurus advocated was far different from the hedonism we associate with the term today. He believed that the unbridled pursuit of wealth, fame, and luxury often leads to more anxiety and dissatisfaction than genuine happiness. The constant craving for more, the fear of loss, the envy of others, these are sources of pain, not pleasure. For Epicurus, the highest pleasures were simple and easily attainable. Friendship. He valued close, supportive relationships immensely. Freedom. This meant self-sufficiency, not being enslaved to a demanding job or societal expectations. Thought/reflection. Engaging the mind, understanding the world, and dispelling fears, especially the fear of death and the gods, whom he believed were indifferent to human affairs. Simple living, enjoying simple food, modest shelter, and the basic necessities of life. He famously said, "Plain fare gives as much pleasure as a costly diet when once the pain of want has been removed." He wasn't against enjoying fine things, but he warned against becoming dependent on them for happiness. The true Epicurean seeks to minimize pain and maximize stable, peaceful pleasure. This often means cultivating a mindset of gratitude for what one has, rather than constantly yearning for what one lacks. It's about finding joy in the everyday, in the present moment. This often contrasts with much of modern life, where we're often driven by a work hard, play hard mentality that can be a recipe for burnout. We chase external validation through career success, material possessions, and social status, often sacrificing our peace of mind in the process. Epicurus would suggest that this is a misguided path to happiness. He'd ask, must we really be so busy, consuming so much, striving so relentlessly? Is it necessary to live in a luxurious house, send our children to the most prestigious schools, and eat gourmet meals every day to be happy? His answer would be a resounding no. The influence of Epicurean thought can be seen in modern movements advocating for simple living, mindfulness, and the pursuit of well-being over mere wealth. Think of people choosing to downsize, to work less, to spend more time with loved ones or in nature. There's a story in Evans's book about a woman named Harvey who, facing a terminal illness and the daily threat of death, found solace in Epicurean philosophy. She said, I know my future has been taken away, but I can still find joy in my illness. Only by using Epicurus's philosophy to live for the present do I try to enjoy whatever I am doing, like yoga or walking or talking to my husband. She discovered that happiness, for her, became profoundly simple, savoring the present moment, whatever it held. This is a powerful reminder that even in the face of immense adversity, the capacity for simple joy can remain if we cultivate the right mindset. As many modern mindfulness teachers emphasize, living in the present is key. Harvey lamented how easily we get caught up in trivialities, forgetting to connect with the simple happiness available to us. Epicureanism nudges us to pay attention to the small joys, to actively create moments of simple pleasure, to find a balance between engagement with the world and retreat into tranquility. We don't necessarily need to isolate ourselves in a garden like Epicurus, but we can consciously carve out space for quiet reflection, for connection with nature, for meaningful conversations with friends, and for appreciating the beauty in ordinary things. The Japanese writer Haruki Murakami speaks of small happinesses, those little everyday moments of delight that, noticed and savored, can accumulate into a deeply satisfying life. The core message of Epicureanism is that happiness isn't as complicated as we often make it out to be. The key lies in how and where we seek it. Finally, let's turn our attention to Aristotle, one of the most colossal figures in the history of Western thought. A student of Plato and the tutor of Alexander the Great, Aristotle's contributions spanned logic, ethics, politics, biology, metaphysics, and poetics. His influence on intellectual history is almost immeasurable. When it comes to living a good life, Aristotle's central concept is eudaimonia, a Greek term often translated as happiness or flourishing, but perhaps more accurately understood as living well and doing well. For Aristotle, eudaimonia is not a fleeting emotion or a subjective state of mind. It's an objective state of being, achieved through a life lived in accordance with virtue, or arete, which means excellence. So happiness, in the Aristotelian sense, comes from cultivating good character and consistently acting in excellent, virtuous ways. It's about realizing our full human potential. But how do we cultivate these virtues? Aristotle proposed his famous doctrine of the golden mean. He argued that virtue typically lies as a mean or a middle point between two extremes, both of which are vices. For example, courage is the mean between the vice of cowardice, deficiency, and the vice of rashness or recklessness, excess. Generosity is the mean between stinginess, deficiency, and profligacy or extravagance, excess. Wittiness or good humor is the mean between boorishness, deficiency, being no fun, and buffoonery, excess, being a clown. Proper pride, having a justified sense of self-worth, is the mean between undue humility, deficiency, and vanity or arrogance, excess. Temperance, moderation in physical pleasures, is the mean between insensibility, deficiency, and self-indulgence, excess. This idea of the golden mean is somewhat similar to Confucius's concept of the doctrine of the mean, zhangyang, which emphasizes balance, harmony, and appropriateness in one's thoughts and actions, avoiding any extremes. Finding this mean isn't about mathematical precision. It requires practical wisdom, phronesis, the ability to discern the appropriate course of action in specific situations. It's about developing good judgment through experience and habit. We become virtuous by repeatedly performing virtuous acts, much like a musician becomes skilled by practicing their instrument. Aristotle believed that happiness is an activity of the soul in accordance with virtue. It's not something passive, it's something you do. He even suggested that one could find a kind of eudaimonia in sacrificing one's life for a noble cause, such as for one's country or community, because such an act represents the highest expression of virtue. Now, you might be thinking, Stoicism, Epicureanism, Aristotelianism, which one is right? Which philosophy should I follow? This is where the beauty of Philosophy for Life really shines. The book doesn't try to convert you to any single doctrine. Instead, it presents these philosophies as a diverse toolkit. The right philosophy, or the most useful set of principles, depends on your individual needs, your circumstances, and what particular challenges you're facing at any given time. If you're feeling lost, lacking purpose, or easily overwhelmed by setbacks, the rigorous self-discipline and focus on inner control offered by Stoicism can be incredibly empowering. It can help you build resilience, cultivate emotional fortitude, and navigate adversity with greater calm and clarity. If you're caught in the frantic pace of modern life, feeling stressed, overworked, materialistic, or finding it hard to appreciate the simple things, then the wisdom of Epicureanism might be just what you need. It can help you reconnect with your inner self, find joy in the present moment, cultivate tranquility, and simplify your life in ways that lead to deeper contentment. And if you're seeking to build a strong moral character, make ethical decisions, and live a life of purpose and excellence, then Aristotle's emphasis on virtue and the golden mean provides a rich framework. It encourages self-reflection on your habits and actions, striving for balance and appropriateness in all aspects of your life: how you eat, sleep, work, interact with others, and even how you engage in leisure. The key is not to rigidly adhere to one school of thought, but to draw selectively from each as needed. Think of it like having a well-stocked toolbox. You wouldn't use a hammer for every job. Similarly, you can apply Stoic resilience when facing a crisis, embrace Epicurean simplicity for daily well-being, and strive for Aristotelian virtue in your character development. Personally, I find Stoicism to be like an unshakable rock, reminding me of the importance of discipline, resilience, and focusing on my responses in difficult times. My preference for a simpler lifestyle, finding joy in nature and quiet moments, definitely resonates with Epicurean ideals. And in my daily interactions and decisions, I often find myself reflecting on Aristotle's golden mean, trying to find that appropriate balance, avoiding extremes in my thoughts and actions. Evans even includes a helpful table of virtues synthesized from Aristotle, which can be a practical guide for self-reflection. Ultimately, when you feel overwhelmed by external pressures, when reality feels constricting and joy seems elusive, the first step is to pause and look within. Often, our feelings of powerlessness in the face of the external world stem from a sense of powerlessness within our own hearts, within our own minds. Philosophy is a unique kind of knowledge because it's not just about information, it's about transformation. It energizes the soul. It doesn't demand blind faith in any particular doctrine. Instead, it invites us to think critically, to reflect deeply, and to actively seek solutions to our inner problems. And when the problems within your heart and mind begin to resolve, you'll often find that the problems in your external life become more manageable, or at least your capacity to deal with them is greatly enhanced. The title of the book, Philosophy for Life, isn't about choosing one definitive philosophy to live by as if it were a rigid instruction manual. Rather, it's about using philosophy as a dynamic set of tools, leveraging the timeless wisdom of these ancient thinkers as a means to forge your own path to a happier, more meaningful, and more resilient life in the here and now. Instead of being unconsciously swept along by the currents of life day after day, philosophy encourages us to engage in regular dialogue with ourselves, to reflect more deeply on our experiences, to pay attention to our thoughts and emotions, and to consciously choose actions and mindsets that genuinely contribute to our well-being. What I've shared today is just a glimpse into the rich tapestry of ideas presented in Jules Evans's book. He actually explores the wisdom of 12 different philosophers and schools of thought, showing how each offers valuable lessons for modern living. I truly hope this discussion has opened a new window for you, allowing you to see the profound and practical impact that Western philosophy can have on your life. The most important question to ask yourself as you explore these ideas is not just, is this interesting, but how does this apply to me? How can I use this wisdom in my life? Personally, I sincerely hope you found this exploration of philosophy from modern life valuable. Perhaps it has sparked a curiosity to learn more, to delve deeper into these ancient yet remarkably relevant teachings. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey today. If this discussion resonated with you, if it offered a new perspective or a useful tool, please consider sharing it with others who might benefit. Show your support by hitting that like button, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so you don't miss out on future explorations into ideas that can help us all live better, more thoughtful lives. I'm planning to delve into other fascinating thinkers and concepts in upcoming videos, perhaps even figures like Nietzsche or Schopenhauer as mentioned. Let me know in the comments below which philosophical ideas you find most compelling or helpful in your own life. Once again, thank you for your time and attention. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.